Great. All right, thank you. Thanks for thinking of that, Kimmy. So, hello, everybody. This is a volunteer organization that, through various history, got involved in electrifying and improving their energy efficiency, and they're reducing their carbon emissions, particularly for their home. Then we were approached in different ways by the Rewiring America organization in order to see if they were interested in us working with others on a volunteer basis in order to help others electrify their homes and reduce their carbon emissions. So my name is Chris Prue, and we've all been trained over the course of the last year or two to do this. And this has given us a broad background in what to do in order to help people to electrify their homes. We have a network of about 18 coaches, and we hope to add more to this. So if you're interested in doing this yourself as a coach, it's really very rewarding. This is a free service. There's no charge for any of this. And we have a lot of resources that we use through Rewiring America and through our own personal experience as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we focus mostly on home electrification, but that includes different categories. In New Jersey, the majority of emissions come from three sources: electricity generation, transportation, and buildings. Most of you have seen a chart like this one in the past, and this shows some of the major sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Can you see this okay, Caroline? Yes. Great. This is a little bit out of date. This data is from 2021. And so some of the data might be a little bit different because of the pandemic as well, like the transportation area. But as you can see, we have a serious amount of energy use and gas emissions that come from residential and commercial sources. Next slide. At any rate, buildings have not changed significantly, or they don't change that significantly year by year, and they make up a significant portion of emissions, as you can see. Which is why it's important for us to focus on this. And it's also a complex topic, especially for homeowners or for any small business, to figure out what they need to do in order to reduce emissions. It's also important to work with the contractor out there in order to bring them up to speed as well. Contractors will oftentimes do things the way that they know because it's business, it's time, it's money, etc. But there's new ways coming along all the time, and they need kind of sources of information and references in order to do this in the most modern way as well. So building electrification can really reduce emissions, of course, and then the nice thing about electrification is you can also add solar, and then you literally can run your house for really no external source of electricity. I'll put that in quotes because there's different ways to frame that. But tonight, we'll show you how consumers, as well as the state as a whole, can benefit from having this kind of advice. We have a case study with a person that we've worked with recently, Karen, and this will help you to understand the process. Okay. Next slide, and I think Betsy, you're next. Is that right?
Yep, I'm next. So, hi, I'm Betsy. And just for your information, we do have a Substack site that you can go to, a website, so that you can get the information. You can sign up for coaching if you'd like, and just contact us after this presentation's over. So we want to show you what does a coaching session look like? What kinds of things could you expect to do? I mean, we try very hard to answer the questions that you have. We don't have a standard procedure. And we want to caution you without a good plan where you think about things ahead of time, you can't expect good results. Next slide, please. So even before talking to us individually, a really good thing to do is to take a look at Rewiring America's personal electrification planner. And you can see the URL there on the slide. It's a really great online tool, and it helps you think through your situation, um, gives you a lot of information, and then you can go back and forth and fool around with it. And then when you're ready, if you want more personalized questions answered, you can contact us. So the first part of it is to uh, go to the tool and make a plan. Next slide. So you tell it the address of your house, and what kind of home it is and whether you're renting or not. Um, and you tell it all about the kinds of power you have in your house, everything from heating to cooling to how you heat your water, how you dry your clothes, and then how big your house is. And of course, it can take a good look at your house on Google Earth as well. Next slide. So it's going to ask you some other questions, and you might be surprised, why is it asking for my household income? That's because depending on whether you're a low income or moderate income person, you might have substantially more rebates available to you depending on your income. And it also asks you, why are you doing this? Are you trying to save money? Are you trying to modernize your equipment? Are you trying to lower your climate impact? Um, or even just improve the interior air in your house. And depending on that, it might prioritize the kinds of projects in a different way. Next slide. So when I answered the questions like that, it gave me 2 pages of a plan. The first part here is the pre-work. It says, the first thing you should do is, you have an older house, you should get a home energy audit to figure out whether it's properly weatherized. Are you just heating your home and throwing the heat through the walls and the ceiling and heating your neighborhood rather than your house? And so a home energy audit is a really good thing to do. You can also get, there's also money and rebates available for pre-wiring your home to get it ready. For example, if in the future you may want an EV charger, perhaps you might want a 240-volt circuit because you might want an induction stove, or maybe you have to wire differently for a heat pump. So all of those things you should think about and rewire your house one time. Okay, next slide. And here was the actual project list that it suggested to me. You can see that it's giving you um, some idea of how much money you're going to save with each of these. Um, and some of them are not very expensive, and or not very difficult, and some of them are pretty much at the other end of the spectrum. So you can see I did install solar panels already, and now it's suggesting other things. So you can click on any of those things to get more information. So let's pretend I clicked on upgrade to a heat pump. Next slide, please. So if you click on the heat pump, you get a lot of information there. You can see underneath the title there that there are 6 tabs: an introduction, cost and benefits, rebates and credits, project guide, contractors, and learning more. And I'm just going to show you what is underneath each of those tabs for a heat pump. So underneath the introduction is what's on the left-hand side of the page. It tells you what does a heat pump mean, and then it gives you the cost and benefits on the right-hand side of the page. It's got a high positive health impact. It's going to last 10 to 20 years. And it's fairly hard to do. You really are going to have to hire an HVAC contractor. And then it tells you about your energy bill impact. Okay, next page. And we're continuing to click along those tabs at the top. Now we're at rebates and credits. So I want to emphasize that rebates and credits come from 3 different sources. There are federal rebates, there's state rebates, and there are utility rebates. Although I guess there may be local rebates in some cases. So there are a lot of different places to look for financing. Um, Rewiring America knows about the um, federal rebates, and it tries to keep up with the state rebates and the utility rebates, but you might have to look for those yourself as well. So you can see that there's quite a bit of money available. But of course, if you look on the right-hand side, the costs show that this is a rather expensive project, as you would expect if you were replacing your gas furnace. You could also, it's also recommended a lot of times when you get a heat pump, if you have not already weatherized your house, that you should do that also, and it's giving you information about that. Next slide. And then if you go if you keep clicking along the top of that tab line, we got to the project guide. And here's a set of steps that you would take to actually put a heat pump in your home. And you could click on any of those to get the information. But I clicked here for the purposes of this presentation on vet your contractor candidates. So next slide. Um, you can say that you can see that it has a lot of different questions to ask your contractor to try and understand whether they've proposed something that makes sense for your situation. And for each of those, there's an explanation of what are they trying to get at, and how do you how do you know whether the answer is good? This is a particularly good place for your electrification coaches, because I'm sure that all of you are not experts in HVAC, because I certainly wasn't when we were doing all of this, and we each have a lot of hard-won knowledge from having done many of these things in our own homes. So we can help you interpret what this means and how it applies to your house. Next slide. And then you're down to find an HVAC contractor. Um, this can be a challenge. HVAC contractors, like the rest of us, are scrambling for new technology, and they're getting trained as quickly as they can. Um, but not all of them are trained. And so you want to figure out who you should contact. On the right-hand side of the page, you can see that Rewiring America tries to recommend local contractors. They often depend heavily on other certifications. For example, there are BPI certified contractors. That means Building Performance Institute. That institute gives courses, gives tests, certifies contractors, and they have to meet a certain standard. There are also contractors that come about because they install equipment that is manufactured by an important person and an important company in the field. So, for example, Mitsubishi and LG are both manufacturers of heat pumps. And so people who are certified through Mitsubishi or LG Pro are probably pretty good contractors to give you a quote. Okay, next slide. Oh, and I should say also that some states, New Jersey's not one of them, have recommend contractors through the state as being certified and understanding how to implement their clean energy program. We're trying to fill that gap as the Electrification Coaching Network, and figure out a network of contractors that we know are certified. But we can probably help you find BPI certified contractors, and we'd love to hear about people's experiences so that we can build up our own recommendation network too. So continuing along the tab network that we were clicking on, there's Learn More, and it has a whole lot of other information about heat pumps. Next slide, please. So that's kind of a run through of the tool. You can see that you can go back and forth, and it will help you hone in on what you think you can afford and when you think you should do it. So the next question, of course, is what will it cost and how much will it save you? Next slide. So this is a table from Rewiring America, and they have also an IRA calculator website. And this is pretty good as an overview of the types of projects you could do, their upfront cost, how hard they are, whether renters can do this as well as homeowners, how much will this affect your home emissions, how much will it affect the indoor and outdoor air quality, um, and what are the savings for when you operate the equipment. So by looking through this table, the orange ones are the pre-work, the yellow ones are HVAC and heat pump related appliances. The blue ones are transportation, and the pink ones are solar and battery storage where you're producing your own energy. So you can kind of look at that to get an idea. Okay, next slide. All right, now we get into financing, and this is also where we as electrification coaches can help you. We're at a very uncertain time right now, given that the national political situation where we're not sure whether some of the federal funding is going to continue. And also we're at a stage where in New Jersey plans in 3-year cycles called the triennium, and the first triennium has just ended, and the second one has begun on January 1st, and we have not yet received the absolute definite information from New Jersey as to what these rebates are, but we expect to get them pretty soon. Okay, next slide. All right, so going back to the federal, state, and utility level, there are federal tax credits known as IRS code 25C or 25D, and they can represent a fairly large amount of money. And for at least one of the areas, you can carry over the unused credits. Okay, next slide. Okay, so those were the tax credits. These are the federal energy rebates. Just so we know what low and moderate income means here in New Jersey, there's a table here of the AMI, which is, I think, the average. I don't know what it means, but it's basically the income level, medium income level, and whether you fall into the low income class or moderate or above that. So low income is less than 80% of the AMI. And of course, it depends on the number of family members you have. Moderate income is between 80 and 150% of the AMI, and upper income is above that. So depending on what your income level is and how much energy you're able to save, you can get a fairly large rebate. In some cases, up to $8,000. Okay, next slide. And there's another federal electrification and appliance rebate. This is a table of this is a table just so you can get a little bit better idea in an organized way. Although there are a lot of details to each one of these. You can see that weatherization, wiring, electrical panel upgrades, heat pumps of various kinds, solar batteries, and ground source heat pumps all have some federal rebates. Okay, next slide. We're awaiting the IRA rebates from the state of New Jersey, and just some notes as to what we think will be proposed. What we think will be law is probably up to $10,000 of a rebate for cold climate air source heat pumps, and possibly more if you're in the lower moderate income bracket. There will also be rebates for panel upgrades and for wiring changes, for weatherization, for induction stoves, for heat pump clothes dryers, hot water heaters and pool heaters, and for lawn equipment. Okay, next slide. And also your utility offers rebates and loans. One of the nicest things is a zero interest loan. The zero interest loan philosophy is that if that you can pay for the equipment via the energy savings that you achieve each month. So that's a really nice way to finance things. And also the utilities have other kinds of rebates, and they also often have sales on equipment like smart thermostats, LEDs, etc. Next slide. Oh, another interesting website is the EnergyStar.gov website and you can find rebates through there too for particular kinds of equipment. Next slide. And here's one where I just looked for heat pumps, but you could look for clothes dryers or you could look for pool heaters or something. Anyway, next slide. Finding an HVAC contractor. Next slide. We mentioned this a little bit. I don't want to get too much into this. I talked about most of it. This is where we can help you a lot in trying to find local people. Okay, next slide. And then also where we can help you is in evaluating the contractor and the bid. Get at least 3 proposals. Ask them, can you do it without fossil fuel? Many contractors are just proposing what they know, not necessarily the newest technology that's out there. You can also ask your contractors if their job is cheaper, what are they not doing that other contractors are doing? And then, of course, there are definitely technical questions that we can help you with. So you'll see some of these later in this presentation. Okay, next slide. And here's another technical question, and I think I'll skip that. So, but this one is very important for determining whether the heat pump that's selected for your home is going to properly heat your home at all different temperatures. Okay, next slide. Okay, take it away, Isla.
Thanks, Betsy. Hello, my name's Isla Vasallo. I'm in Burlington County this evening, and I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our Going Electric intake form. Next slide, please. The purpose of the Going Electric intake form is to collect some basic information from you and have you answer a few questions on why you want to electrify so that an electrification coach can be assigned to you to help you on your electrification journey. Next slide. To sign up, simply enter your name, city, county, state, and email. The email is required so that we can contact you. And your location will help us assign an electrification coach that is in your area. Next slide. After you've entered your contact information, there are a few simple questions to help us understand why you want to electrify, and it's okay if you don't have a detailed explanation. Any associated time frame or costs you have in mind, and if you are familiar with the Rewiring America's personal electrification plan, or PEP, that Betsy went over. Next slide. And it's that easy. Once you have submitted your intake form, an electrification coach will be in touch with you. We want to note that your information will not be shared or distributed beyond the coaching group. And you can see on this slide, there is a link to the intake form and a QR code. So thanks for listening, and I'm now happy to turn things over to Steve Miller, one of our premier electrification coaches.
Thank you, Isla. So I'm a premier electrification coach. Thank you. My name is Steve Miller, and I'm just one of the many New Jersey electrification coaches now. And I'm available to provide you with data to help your decisions. And tonight I'm going to show you a case study that we did just 6 weeks ago on Karen's house. We left her anonymous last name. It's located less than 1 mile from the Atlantic Ocean. I think that has special problems with higher humidity. during times of fog and whatnot, and that affects the HVAC system. We'll talk about that later on. It's located in Neptune City, and we had an audience, I don't know, maybe 60 people, which didn't seem to faze her. She loved talking about her experiences. I commented about this house. I love the attractive brick and block work in both the front and the backyard. You'll see in a second. It has a very large solar array. She bought this last year. So for her, it's a new house. And the first thing she did was to install solar on every square foot of roofing area. So there are 3 different arrays. One is on each side of the main roof, and the third is on the sunroom you can see in front. I admire the way that the sunroom was designed. It's facing south, and there's an overhang designed explicitly to block sun in the summer and allow sun into that sunroom in the winter. So it's really a good design. Now, but Karen told us that the sunroom is too hot in summer and too cold in winter. One reason may be it has only one duct and register to that room. So we told her that it would be wise to arrange an energy audit and have someone look at the insulation. Is the ceiling and walls well insulated, for instance? And when Karen decides on a heat pump contractor for that project in the future, the contractor should install the necessary ducts and registers in the sunroom to fix the problem. Next. And this is Karen's backyard. I find that also very attractive. I noticed there's no grass. And she said, yeah, the only grass area is right along the road in front of her house, small strip. And she said she's proud. She uses a push lawnmower to mow her grass on that one small strip. Next. So we asked Karen to use online tools from Rewire in America to create this electrification plan you show here. Betsy described this earlier. The output of the plan for Karen is shown here. Beginning in the top left, she should get a home energy audit, including a blower door test. You can get it for as little as $49. It's typically $99 or a little more, but still, that's pretty small. And JCP&L has a special heavily subsidized weatherization program for low-income residents, and Karen feels that she would qualify. So we have a series of references at the end of our talk that we won't go through very much, but I hope that they would be available offline so people can look through this material later on. The second topic is to pre-wire the house. Homeowners can save a lot of money by first creating the electrification plan, and then one visit by the electrician to fix all the wiring at much lower cost than many trips. The projects she'd like to do are to include a heat pump to replace a gas furnace, have a heat pump water heater, and a heat pump clothes dryer, and some other things we talked about as well. To the right are things she's already done. She already has the solar on her rooftop. She already added actually an EV. She bought a used EV, and we'll talk about that in a second. And the final thing she did was she already installed and bought and installed an inductive range, an oven. So those are 3 major things that she did on her own before meeting us, actually. So next, let's take a look at appliances inside Karen's house. I start with Karen's electrical panel. This is the weak link of the whole scheme with Karen. The panel is rated only at 100 amps. You can tell that if you look closely, if you're closer than we are, to the main breaker in the top, it's stamped 100. Karen did receive a quote of $3,000 to upgrade the panel, and the federal tax credit would lower the price by only $600, so it's still an expense. And we hope to continue using this panel because experience has shown that careful planning of electrical appliance upgrades allows use of 100 amp panels for up to 3,000 square foot house, which is like 3 times the size of Karen's. So a licensed electrician can calculate how electrically full this 100 amp panel actually is. The problem is not those breakers almost completely filling the panel. The problem is more electrical load, where you calculate the simultaneous load using rules by the National Electric Code. We do have an online spreadsheet that people can use, and I've used it myself to do my own calculations of the heat load, and other qualified people can do the same. Next slide. So the first physical appliance we examine is this air conditioner unit, and we take a quick look at the outside of it. And you look at the next slide. This is the nameplate for this AC condenser unit. There's two items of importance. One is the date of manufacture is May 2019, so it's only 5 years old. Now 6 years, I guess. Well within its lifetime of maybe 10 or 15 years. But I noticed the problem. The label recommends minimum and maximum circuit breaker sizes of minimum 20 amps and maximum 25. I found neither in the photo of the electrical panel. So that needs to be explored further by an electrician. But regardless, if we replace this with a heat pump, which tend to have much higher efficiency than the AC, there's a good chance that heat pump could use the same wiring as this AC and just sort of directly plug in place of the AC. I did that in fact my house, and not only did they use the same power, they used the same refrigerant lines, the same copper tubing. So it can be done. Next slide. Now, next we are checking out the AC in Karen's attic. On the way up there, we pull down the ladder, the folding ladder, and up ahead you see this zipper aluminized cover, which provides both insulation and blocks the airflow. After opening this, we can then look around for air gaps near the framing that may exist, and if we find foam sealing those, it's evidence the house has already been weatherized and sealed, but the house doesn't really seem to be weatherized and sealed. Next slide. And we're now in the attic. We see an AC unit on the left, and you can see all the octopus cold air tubes that cool the first floor. The heating here is totally separate from the air conditioning. We had one contractor during the course of our discussions and our meetings provide advice that what he'd recommend is to simply throw out that AC and remove all the attic ducts, because they're huge loss of heat in winter and cooling in summer. And instead you'd replace everything with a new heat pump and ducts in the basement to replace the existing furnace and ducts. One issue I quickly saw here is there's no ventilation of the attic. Karen told me she sometimes opens the windows, one at each end, to cool the attic. A major concern is condensation. I really have not seen an attic without ventilation. So this another recommendation is that Karen use an audit and a weatherization program to look at whether they need to have basically grates in the ends of the attic to allow airflow. Next. This ruler shows attic insulation. This is showing about 9 inches, which actually is inadequate. It's likely that an audit would show they should be adding additional up to 14 inches, which is usually recommended. Next. Okay, we now move from the attic to the basement. And Karen calls this her monster furnace. She actually has to duck underneath in order to walk underneath that huge, I guess it's a cold air return duct. One thing that very tiny right in the middle of this photo, almost exactly, is a 120 volt AC outlet that's mounted on the central duct. And next to it is a gas water heater on the left. The outlet here could be very convenient because it could be suitable for a shared circuit 120 volt heat pump water heater to replace that gas water heater. We'll talk about that in a second. Karen told us that the bedroom and another room directly above the ducts gets several degrees warmer, too hot. And so we suggest an energy audit that might recommend duct insulation, and that might help make the rooms more comfortable directly above these. Next. So Karen's basement ducts made me think of my own house with exposed basement ducts. And for my own house, I gathered these supplies from Lowe's and Home Depot and very easily am able to do my own duct insulation in the basement. Next slide. So this is the current washer and dryer against the basement wall on the right side of that monster furnace. The washer and dryer plug into the standard wall I see on the basement wall. Karen told us that the way she currently dries her laundry is outside in the summer on a line and in the winter on the basement rack, but would like to have a heat pump dryer. I made a comment. I had an outdoor clothesline for years. I always used it, but this year my clothes washer broke and we wanted to eliminate the gas dryer. So we bought a combo washer and dryer from Best Buy. Next. And my wife always smiles when she sees this. This is our new washer and gas dryer the replacement. The dryer is a heat pump. There is one cord from this total unit requiring relatively little electricity, can be plugged into any electric outlet. And the water drain and the hot and cold supply are exactly what the old washer used. And it's ventless. You don't need a vent for this. You can put it any place in your house. We bought it from the local Best Buy. The showroom floor had 3 different manufacturer combo units, sort of like this. And prices and features are similar. So we highly recommend it. You can talk to people like us for experience. We love it. Next. So we're still in Karen's basement, and this is the current A.O. Smith gas water heater located on the left side of the furnace. We recommend replacing this with the newest heat pump water heater, which is very simple to install. This old gas heater can be easily removed and carted away by the installer. Next. And so this is the label for Karen's current hot water tank. Capacity is 40 gallons. It was manufactured in 2018, so it's 7 years old. Tanks often leak after 10 years, so it's completely okay to replace early. Next. A.O. Smith provides a very convenient comparison of 10-year operating cost and greenhouse gas emissions from 4 different models and configurations. On the far left is a gas hot water heater from A.O. Smith. The cost of operating is $6,000 for 10 years, and it emits 10 tons of greenhouse gas. On the far right is what Karen would have. It's a heat pump water heater plus solar, and she'll have maybe $700 operating cost over 10 years and less than 1 ton of greenhouse gas. It's a significant reduction for operating cost and greenhouse gas. Next. So a heat pump water heater in late 2025, a year from now, or 2026 would be great. And we told her that it's an easy drop-in install instead of the old gas water heater. And we recommend a 120 volt shared circuit heat pump water heater. It means there's no impact on the electrical panel. You just plug it into that shared outlet I pointed to next to right in the middle of the picture of the monster duct furnace. The recovery time, however, of 120 volt heat pump water heater is much slower than gas. So an upgrade from the current 50-gallon tank to up from 40-gallon tank to maybe 50 or even 60-gallon tank is recommended. But you can see to the right here, Shop Black Friday deals from Home Depot, I guess. It says, hey, we'll ship it like almost instantly to your store in Hazlet. But the little diagrams you see on the left side tell another story. They say don't install in the U.S. North if the average temps fall below 37 degrees in winter. So we recommend waiting till at least a year till we have release of cold climate heat pumps for water heaters. And that's going to be true of many manufacturers who sort of all follow in line. And this will ensure it will work in cold conditions. Next. Karen's pleased to announce she bought an induction range and we're going to show you that in a moment, is highly advantageous to install electric instead of highly polluting gas for your kitchen. And induction ranges are the rage nowadays. They slip right in place into your counter space, but they do require 240-volt circuits. Next. And Karen was very proud to show us this beautiful stainless steel LG model induction stove and cooktop, and was telling us all about it and just loved it. Next. And one of the ways that she could employ an electrician to pre-wire is this. She's planning to, she bought the EV and now she's planning to, she got tired of taking the EV, spending 45 minutes to an hour charging it away from her house. So she wanted an EV charger, but her panel can't support it. So we settled on something very simple for her house. She can take that 40 amp circuit for her induction stove, excuse me, and use that shared with the EV charger for her house by using this simple switch. And there's no increase in panel electric load. The simple switch allows her, give me a second, I'm going to take a drink of water. So the simple switch of wiring is actually shown in this diagram. So you have a new conduit. This switch is probably about 6 inches by 6 inches. New conduit to the existing panel allows sharing of two different devices. In this case, whenever her induction stove is on, it preempts the EV charger. And then when the induction stove is off, the EV chargers continue just like before. And so I know exactly how this thing would wire up. I studied it a bit. I'm an electrical engineer, so I actually I made sure the electrician she's going to have installs it correctly, and I emailed Karen a schematic she's supposed to give to the electrician. That's supposed to have been done, I think, in December. I haven't checked back with her, but I'm hopeful that this arrangement now is working beautifully. Next. So Karen has bought her Chevy Bolt EV and relied on an EV charging station. And I advised her to buy this type of charger, although there's many available. This is used by Tesla. It's called a universal wall connector for any EV. Next. This is something that I'm sure a consumer is not going to do, but I'm able to do as I did it. And this is what the HVAC contractor does to select a cold heat pump. And here I chose a Mitsubishi cold climate heat pump, which I thought it would work in this case in Karen's house. I plotted against her load. And the answer is it works great in the heating season, but in the cooling season in the summer with high humidity, it's poor. It doesn't do well. And the way you can gauge that is by the large amount of red you see on the right side in the cooling. And so a contractor, HVAC contractor would, if he knows what he's doing, would then go on and select another model that does a better job cooling in the summer. And the problem is dehumidification. You need to have the thing working properly to dehumidify. That's the sort of thing you have to make sure your contractor knows what to do and actually does that sort of work. The next 3 slides are just background information. I highly recommend you take a look at the Redwood Energy site. It has loads of stuff of any sort of electrification project you can imagine. Go on to next. And there are 2 pages of very useful references. And I hope we have a way to get all this information to you. And that concludes my portion of the talk. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And a lot of this, as you can tell, it's very technical. So we can take you through this step by step to help you to get through all of this, because for many of you, you may not have any experience with this kind of thing. And so we can help you in a step-by-step way as well. So our goal is to electrify everything. Why do we want to do that? Well, we reduce our carbon emissions. And a lot of people say, well, New Jersey is going to generate electricity anyway, so we're going to make carbon emissions that way. Well, actually, New Jersey is a pretty green state that way. We have a lot of our electricity coming from nuclear power. So there's a good portion of our electricity which doesn't produce any carbon emissions. And the part that does is being reduced all the time by the addition of more and more solar and wind. And then in addition, of course, you can add your own solar in the future. So the goal is to electrify everything. Next slide. So in our homes, we have lots of different sources of emissions, such as our stoves and our other gas burning appliances. Maybe you have oil heat, maybe you have propane heaters, as many do in more rural areas. And maybe you have a conventional car, as I still do. So the goal is to reduce our emissions and to reduce our dependency on fossil fuels. Next slide. And of course, as we get into this more and more, there's lots of support available to do this. Rewiring America is very supportive with lots of technical information. We of course support each other within our New Jersey ECN. And we're interested in recruiting more people who want to coach and help. Next slide. We have a big job to do. There's about 140 million homes in the US, and the goal, as we hope, would be to convert those homes by 2050 to all electric. So we have a lot to do, and we need many electrification coaches and trained contractors in order to get to that point. Next slide. So anyone can become an electric coach. If you're a community leader, if you're just a homeowner, if you are in real estate, or if you're a contractor, any of these things can be very helpful to the community. As you do this, of course, it may be just that you just learn what to do for your own home, or maybe the homes of your friends or your relatives or your children. But before long, you realize that a lot of people need help with these kinds of things. And so it may not be a complete redo of the home, but it might be just preparing someone for when that furnace will go sometime in the future, or that water heater will go sometime in the future, to prepare them that these things are available and that it's really not that hard to switch. Next slide. So the training is done by Rewiring America online, and it's a 4-week class. There's about one main class per week, and then there's some side meetings with experts where you can learn about more specific topics. It has a wide range of people, a lot of retirees, a lot of contractors, a lot of people who have some basic knowledge through their work as well. Next slide. And so we need volunteers. And if you'd like to become an electrification coach, you can, of course, speak to us. So there's in the slide deck, there's a URL for to fill out an intake form. So the intake form, as was described, is a great way to just tell us what you're interested in doing, and then we can help you on a one-on-one basis. The other area that you can go to, as you saw on the presentation, is that personal electrification plan. And that's just a way to help you to think through, what do I need to do? What order should I do it in? Karen made kind of the same mistake that I did, and that is I added my solar first. So I've had solar since 2010, and it's been great. It's saved me a lot of money. But now that I'm electrifying more, it's not big enough. And so it's kind of a chicken or egg kind of thing. If you add solar now, you'll start saving money right away and you'll start reducing your carbon footprint right away. But then at some point, as you electrify, you won't be making as much electricity from your solar panels, and then you'll start to have an electric bill again, which is kind of a bummer. But of course, you're saving all the way along the way. And then at some point, you have to add to your solar. So I even added to my solar in 2020, and guess what? It's not big enough again. So the personal electrification plan is a great way to help you to plan. All right, so that was a bit long, but I hope it wasn't too long for anyone. There's the URL if anyone wants to scan that with their phone. I can help you, Carolyn, too, if you want to do more with this. And is there any questions at this point? Yes, Carolyn asks, does the heat pump replace your furnace? Yes, exactly. It can replace your furnace and your air conditioning at the same time.
Yes.
Right? That's right. You no longer need gas anymore. So you think, wow, I recall that electricity is expensive to heat your home. But the beautiful thing about heat pumps is that they are 3 to 4 times more efficient than just a regular heating electric coil. They make heat in a different way than just the way a toaster does. So they are very efficient. So in most cases, the cost to heat your home will be about the same as using gas. That'll vary somewhat from area to area, but it'll be approximately the same. Even though you're using no gas, you're only using electricity. If you get solar as well, then of course you could literally have a zero heating bill. So that's the beautiful thing about solar is that as you electrify everything, you know, your gas appliances, your gas dryer, you literally can get all of that get electric bill paid for. Any other questions from anyone?
So an average house, like a small house like Karen's, right? It's going to cost how much in real dollars to electrify? But when we talk about rebates, okay, so what is a rebate? Is a rebate actual money, or is a rebate a tax credit? Like how do those things work so that, you know, in real dollar expenses, people can prepare to electrify their homes?
That's a great question. I don't know if everyone could hear that. What are rebates and what are tax credits? So as we were electrifying, there were different bumps in the road to try to figure out what to do financially. In most cases, you're getting a check back from someone. So, for example, when we bought when you bought the heat pump dryer, washer dryer combo, Steve, the utility probably sent you a rebate check, I imagine. Yes, he's muted, but I got his.
Yes, it was a couple hundred, maybe $200, that ballpark.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you have a larger project like a heat pump or something like that, then they usually just take the contractor and the utility work together, and they just take the rebate right off the price, so you never actually see that. And they know about 0% loans also, so that was you know, very very nice. They handled all the paperwork.
That's really ideal. So that's when you're working with a contractor that's signed up with the utility. So if we're in PSE&G territory here, PSE&G has on their website their contractors. You pick one of those contractors, and ideally you want to pick 3 so you get a different breakdown in costs and how much you understand what they're going to be doing, and then they work with you directly like that. So that's a direct rebate. And then the third one is the IRS tax deductions. So you put in solar, you get a 30% of that cost directly off your taxes. And you can actually even carry that over, if I remember correctly, from year to year if you don't owe that much taxes.
There's one additional the utility, did you already cover utility rebates?
Yes, go
Because
ahead.
in 2025, right now, it's supposed to have been effective January 1st, but I haven't yet seen the output from any utility. The electric utilities will have a built-in decarbonization rebate program. And the biggest expense you'll have would be replacing your furnace, gas furnace, with a heat pump. And they're offering up to $10,000 for a rebate for a cold climate heat pump to replace gas. So that is a whopping amount of money. Probably more than half would be rebated just
Yeah.
from the one source, just from your utility. Now, we don't
Yeah.
know the details yet. It says up to $10,000. I don't know what the final number will be. We don't know that yet until it's publicized.
Another thing that's really important is what Steve just said about cold weather heat pumps. So in the past, heat pumps were only sold really in the southern United States because they couldn't heat that well. They provided air conditioning very well, but they didn't heat that well. But in the last few years, cold weather heat pumps have been developed, and now these can be used throughout North America. They're used in Canada. They're used in all the cold weather areas, and they heat just fine. If you go to the average contractor today and you ask about a heat pump in New Jersey, you have a fair chance of them saying it won't work. So that's something to be wary of, and that's what I found when I was asking about these a little bit too early a few years ago. And so I had to really look around for a contractor who understood a cold weather heat pump. If you put that into Google, by the way, or to YouTube, you'll see a real great background on cold weather heat pumps to really understand how they work. So I highly recommend anybody to do that's interested in that. So that's the first part, that you can replace your furnace. You don't need a backup furnace. You don't need a backup gas heating line at all. And when you're done with this process, you literally can remove your gas line from your home. And by the way, you then save the utility background cost for gas, which is that little bill that they give you every month just because you're a customer. How nice of them. So any other questions on that? Yes, Carolyn.
You said they're up
Mm-hmm.
price. 1,500.
1,500 square foot house. So just an approximation, Steve, Betsy, I'm thinking somewhere around 15,000 in that range.
I'm sorry for what?
The approximate price for a cold weather heat pump for a 1,500 square foot home. As an approximation.
Yeah, that maybe even a little more than that. What do you think,
Mm-hmm.
Steve? So yeah, you're muted, Steve.
Okay. Yeah, 1,500 is a
15,000.
pretty 1,500 square foot, right, house, which is a
Yeah.
relatively small house. And
it's about average size, I guess.
okay, my guess is the 15,000. It could be a little higher, 18,000 maybe.
That's where the Rewiring America planner is good. It'll give you,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
asks for the size of your house and then it gives you approximate price. And
Yeah.
they base it on real quotes that they've gotten, that they see. So that would be a really great place to get an approximation.
Yeah. So
rewiringamerica.org.
we could go through this in more detail if you like, Carl.
18.
Oh, they said 18. Okay. Right. So that's where it takes a lot of homework, but it can be done. And then it's a matter of what's the devil's in the details oftentimes until you really get through it. There's also things like, getting permits and all those kinds of things. So the permits, usually the contractor will get the permits with the town, usually. Okay.
Can't hear.
Yes, any other questions? Oh. Oh, that's a very good question. So a cold weather heat pump is an air sourced heat pump that is built and designed to work at cold temperatures like in the north. A geothermal heat pump is a heat pump that works from ground heat. So it's a little bit different. There's a couple different designs. Most of them work by pumping water through tubes in the ground and then converts the warmth in that water into heat that then can be used in your home. There's another side geothermal technique where they put air tubes through the earth to do the same. So they're a little bit different, but the basic idea is whenever it's geothermal, it's the same basic principle as getting heat from the earth or heat from the air or heat from the water without burning anything and putting it into your home.
And under,
That's right. That's right. Exactly right. Good. Thank you, Kimmy. So in other words, we don't think of 54 as being very warm, but the way these equipment work is that they're able to take that warmth, even though it's only 54 degrees, and turn that into a much higher heat for your home. It's kind of concentrating the heat, if you will. And an air sourced heat pump is doing the same with the air outside your home. Even today, with the temperature down in the teens, the equipment is putting heat into my house, and the same with Steve's house, and the same with Betsy's house. So that's how these things work. They're able to concentrate that heat and put it into your house. And there's some great explanation videos of this on YouTube if you want to check them out. Yes, and Betsy's Substack is a great source. If you see that in the chat, it's got a lot of great information in it. And I know we have the link to that Substack on this on the slide.
Well, let's not confuse that. There's the Substack we have for our coaching.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
But you have a lot of other good background information
I have
in
my
that
own
as well.
personal, I have my own personal one, but I wrote it because I was making my own journey through trying to figure all of this stuff out, and I just wrote it down as I went. So for Jonathan, who's asking, there's articles there on geothermal and different types of heat pumps, and so you can kind of go through there to see. But it's more tutorial than what we have on the electrification coaching site.
Thanks, Betsy. I didn't realize that was your own Substack.
see if somebody session can copy the so that we can share.
Oh, yes. Oh, great. Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, and we should circulate a sign-in sheet. There aren't that many people here, there are more people online. Oh, people online should also drop their contact info into the chat.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That'd be great. Yeah.
So that, if we apply for a grant in the future or something, we can say, look, these presentations, this is the interest that we.
Oh, I see.
We achieve.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so we want to expand these talks to help as many as we can. If you have any organizations that you belong to that you'd like us to present to, we'd be happy to do it. It might be through your company, your church, etc. That would be fun to do for us. And then otherwise, if there's any other questions that come up, we'd be happy to talk to you. We have a fair amount of experience now with various kinds of homes. And yeah, we'd be happy to share it with you.
And just to recap, knowing how much it would cost her to electrify her home, she can get a free coaching evaluation through our network. And we will give her an estimate of all the different costs that would be associated with.
Yes, at least what we understand from the current costs that we see. That's right. In other words, we're all seeing it from a little bit different point of view based on the homes that we've worked on. And of course, every home is a little bit different, but we have a pretty good feel for it.
And it's free.
And it's
And-
free, yeah, yeah, everything we do is free. We're just volunteers doing this and just trying to use our existing experience. Well, thanks, Carolyn.
Because our
Uh, okay,
outside.
uh-huh. Oh, well, I don't know if anybody could hear that, but Carolyn just said that they just put in a new furnace last year, a gas furnace. So, oh well, that's why we want to accelerate this process, because all of us have been there to some degree with that. I put in another electric dryer before I knew about these combo washer dryers. So we're all just kind of trying to keep up as best we can.
Induction stoves.
Yeah, there may be other things you're interested in, Carol. Okay,
But thank you.
you're welcome. And any other comments or questions from anyone? All right, well, thank you very, very much, and we hope to talk to you soon. Bye. Bye, guys.
Okay.